The autumn wind swept across the Wyoming frontier in 1884, carrying the scent of dry grass and distant pine through the rolling hills.
Back.
I spent the afternoon repairing an old fence that had surrendered to years of storms. The ranch had become quieter than ever since my father passed, leaving only endless work and heavier silence behind every sunrise. Most folks believed a hardworking cowboy needed nothing beyond strong hands, a dependable horse, and enough determination to survive another season. They never understood how loneliness settled deeper than winter snow. Every evening, the empty cabin reminded me that success meant little when no friendly voice welcomed me home after exhausting days. The stagecoach arrived just before sunset, raising a cloud of golden dust that drifted across the narrow road beside the ranch. Travelers usually continued toward the nearest town without stopping. That afternoon, however, one young woman climbed down carrying a weathered leather suitcase and wearing a faded blue dress stitched with remarkable care despite obvious hardship. She thanked the driver with gentle manners before standing quietly beside the road. Her eyes wandered across the endless prairie as though searching for courage rather than directions. The wind played with loose strands of chestnut hair while uncertainty rested across her face. Something about her calm dignity immediately captured my attention without explanation. Curiosity finally overcame hesitation, and I walked toward the roadside, removing my hat before speaking. "Good evening, ma'am. Are you looking for someone around here?" She offered a respectful smile that barely concealed exhaustion. Her voice remained soft as she admitted she had arrived hoping to find honest work somewhere nearby before winter. She introduced herself as Eleanor Whitmore, a schoolteacher whose small hometown had suffered terrible drought. Families moved away one after another until the little schoolhouse closed forever. Without students, wages disappeared. After losing both her parents within the same difficult year, she packed everything she owned and trusted the frontier offered another beginning. Listening to her story reminded me how unforgiving life could become without warning. The prairie showed no favoritism toward rich or poor, young or old. It demanded resilience from everyone willing to call it home. Eleanor spoke without bitterness, accepting hardship with quiet strength that impressed me far beyond ordinary beauty or graceful manners. I explained that my ranch needed help preparing supplies before winter settled across the valley. Although I had never hired a schoolteacher for ranch work, determination often mattered more than experience. She accepted the opportunity immediately, promising she would learn every task honestly instead of expecting special treatment because of her education or background. The evening sky transformed into shades of amber and crimson while we walked toward the cabin together. My faithful horse followed behind without complaint, carrying Eleanor's worn suitcase. She admired the peaceful landscape despite its roughness, noticing little details others ignored. Even ordinary wildflowers growing beside dusty trails seemed to brighten her thoughtful expression. Inside the cabin, I placed another log onto the fireplace before preparing a simple supper of fresh bread, beans, and hot coffee. Eleanor insisted on helping despite traveling all day. Her movements revealed good manners learned from loving parents. She treated every small kindness with genuine appreciation instead of believing anyone owed her comfort. During supper, we exchanged stories about childhood memories, favorite books, and hopes quietly hidden beneath everyday responsibilities. She confessed that teaching children had filled her heart with purpose, yet losing the school left an emptiness difficult to describe. I understood because the ranch often felt equally hollow despite keeping my hands constantly occupied with endless labor. The fire crackled softly while darkness settled beyond the cabin windows. Outside, coyotes called across distant hills, reminding us how vast and untamed the frontier remained. Eleanor wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup before speaking words that sounded almost too fragile for such a rugged place. "I never dreamed of love," she whispered quietly. Her confession surprised me because it carried no sadness seeking sympathy. Instead, it sounded like someone describing a dream abandoned long before reaching adulthood. She explained that responsibility always arrived before happiness. Caring for aging parents, protecting younger relatives, and earning enough money to survive had consumed every season of her young life without complaint. For several thoughtful moments, neither of us spoke. The firelight danced across the wooden walls, while the silence somehow felt comforting instead of awkward. Looking into her hopeful yet uncertain eyes, I smiled with complete sincerity. "Then perhaps," I said gently, "it's finally time to dream with me instead." Eleanor lowered her gaze, hiding grateful tears as a hopeful smile slowly appeared. Spring settled gently across the Wyoming frontier, painting the valleys with wildflowers and fresh green grass after the long, unforgiving winter. The ranch felt transformed beneath the warm sunshine. Every sunrise carried renewed hope, and every evening seemed brighter because Eleanor's laughter echoed through the cabin, replacing the silence that had once ruled every corner. Neighbors often visited under friendly excuses, bringing fresh butter, homemade bread, or simple conversation. They quickly noticed how naturally Eleanor belonged among ranch families despite arriving as a stranger months earlier. Her kindness earned respect without demanding attention, and even the oldest settlers admired the quiet grace she carried through every ordinary day. One Saturday afternoon, the small frontier church organized a community gathering beside the river. Families arrived in wagons decorated with ribbons, while children chased one another through the open fields. Eleanor helped prepare meals alongside other women, laughing freely as though sorrow had finally released its grip upon her gentle and generous heart. Watching her from across the gathering filled me with quiet gratitude. Months earlier, she had stepped from the stagecoach carrying only a worn suitcase and uncertain dreams. Now she stood surrounded by smiling friends who treated her like family. The lonely traveler had become the heart of a growing community, without ever seeking recognition. As the celebration continued, the town's elderly pastor approached me with a warm smile. He had witnessed countless stories unfold across the frontier, understanding people better than most. Without asking unnecessary questions, he simply rested a hand upon my shoulder and said, "Some blessings arrive quietly, son. Don't let this one pass." His thoughtful words remained in my mind throughout the evening. I realized happiness often disappeared because people waited too long, fearing rejection more than regret. Looking toward Eleanor as she comforted a frightened little girl separated from her parents, I knew I never wanted another sunrise without her walking beside me through life's uncertainties. The following morning, I saddled my horse before dawn and rode toward the nearest trading post. After carefully counting months of saved earnings, I purchased a modest silver ring crafted by a local blacksmith. It held no precious diamonds or elaborate designs, but honest love required sincerity rather than expensive ornaments beyond ordinary reach. Returning home, I slipped the small ring into my pocket and waited patiently for the right moment. Rushing such an important promise felt disrespectful. Love had grown slowly between us through shared hardships, simple conversations, and unwavering trust. It deserved a proposal equally genuine, spoken beneath the peaceful skies that witnessed our remarkable journey together. That evening, we walked beyond the ranch toward a gentle hill overlooking endless prairie. The setting sun painted the horizon with brilliant shades of gold, crimson, and soft purple. A cool breeze carried the scent of wildflowers while distant horses grazed peacefully below. Nature itself seemed to pause, honoring the quiet beauty surrounding us. Standing beside Eleanor, I remembered the first night she whispered those unforgettable words beside the fireplace. "I never dreamed of love." Back then, sadness filled her voice because life had demanded sacrifice instead of happiness. Now her eyes reflected confidence, peace, and hope, born from months of shared faith and steadfast companionship through every challenge. I reached into my pocket, removed the silver ring, and gently held her trembling hand. "Eleanor," I said softly, "you arrived believing the frontier would only give you honest work. Instead, you've given this lonely ranch a reason to feel alive again. Will you stay beside me for every season still waiting ahead?" For several heartbeats, she remained silent, overwhelmed by emotion rather than uncertainty. Tears gathered within her eyes before a radiant smile slowly appeared. Looking toward the endless horizon, she whispered, "You once told me to dream with you instead. I finally believed those words, and they've become the happiest truth I've ever known." She accepted the ring with trembling fingers before embracing me beneath the fading sunset. The prairie wind carried away every lingering fear that had followed us from our separate pasts. At that moment, we understood genuine love rarely arrived through grand fortunes or perfect circumstances. It quietly grew wherever two faithful hearts chose hope instead of loneliness. Several weeks later, the little frontier church filled with neighbors celebrating our wedding. Fresh wildflowers decorated simple wooden benches, while joyful laughter echoed through the open doors. We exchanged heartfelt vows before family, friends, and grateful townspeople who had witnessed our journey from strangers to soulmates. As we rode home together beneath the endless western sky, Eleanor smiled warmly and whispered, "I never dreamed of love." Holding her hand, I answered with quiet happiness, "Now we'll keep dreaming together forever."